Welcome to another edition of Daily Airline News focusing on the tragic loss of Air India Flight 171. I am Geoffrey Thomas, and I'm delighted to say once again joined by my co-host Richard Godfrey in Frankfurt. Good morning to you, Richard.
And good afternoon to you, Geoffrey.
Viewers, this is episode 188. We have received a large number of emails from viewers with crash analyses and relevant information and aviation industry insight. We are in regular email exchange with a number of pilots and maintenance engineers, including from Air India and including the Air India Boeing 787-8 aircraft. Air India currently has 33 787s, 26 -8s and 7 -9s. All Air India Boeing 787-8s are the same seating configuration, 256 seats, 18 business, 238 economy in a two-class layout. We're showing you a screenshot of the Air India Boeing 787 seating configuration. Richard, so where are the toilets located in relation to the EE bays?
Well, there are 18 business class seats and two toilets by the door one left, and they're reserved for the business class passengers. And then in the economy area, 238 seats, there are four toilets by the door three, left, center, and right. And there are three toilets by door four, which are left and center. There is, in fact, one more toilet than is typical on a 787-8 long haul in a two-class configuration. It usually has 8 in total, not 9. And this makes a lot of sense because the 238 seats in economy is quite a dense seating, and it helps to distribute passenger demand across the mid and aft cabins. And we're showing another screenshot of the Boeing 787-8 passenger doors and for cabin entry on the upper level, and the access doors and cargo doors on the lower level. And starting at the nose, there's a forward access door, the nose wheel landing gear, then a cabin entry door one, left and right, and then the forward EE bay access door. Then there's a forward large cargo door, and then a cabin entry door two, left and right. Then come the wings and the engines, then the main landing gear, and then directly behind the wings and the landing gear, the aft EE bay access door. And that's just where the cabin entry door three and left and right are. And then finally the aft large cargo door, the bulk cargo door, and finally the cabin entry door four, left and right. So going through this, the forward EE bay is just behind door one and the access door, and it's directly where the toilets are located for business class. The toilet's directly above where the EE bay is. And the aft EE bay is just behind the wings and before door three, and the access door to the EE bay, and that's exactly where the four economy class toilets are located by door three, in the left, the center, and the right of the aircraft. We're showing another screenshot which just points out the alignment, and in this screenshot it starts with the nose of the aircraft on the left and the tail on the right. And the green squares mark the forward and the aft EE bay, and it's aligned against the access doors and the cabin doors, so you get a complete picture exactly where the aft and the forward EE bay are.
So, Richard, both EE bays are directly beneath the toilets, the forward EE bay below the two business class toilets and the aft EE bay below the four economy class toilets. Have there been leaks from the toilets into the EE bays below?
Yes, and not only on the Boeing 787, but on just about every other major aircraft. So it's an issue across the industry. And there have been leaks from toilets into EE bays. So this is not a hypothetical situation. There is an accident and incident history on wide-body aircraft. So Boeing 767 and 757 documented cases where lavatory fluid leaked and dripped through the floor panels into the forward EE bay, corroding wiring and connectors. The FAA issued ADs and the airlines Boeing service bulletins to inspect and seal the panels. The Airbus A330 and the A340 incidents of waste system leaks dripping onto avionic racks led to corrosion and intermittent faults. Airbus released modifications to improve drainage and to ensure containment. On the Boeing 747-400, there were several reports, and the NTSB AAIB service difficulties of lavatory drain line leaks affecting avionics and electrical components beneath. And specifically on the 787, Boeing and the FAA have acknowledged concerns about water ingress into the forward EE bay and later into the aft EE bay. So the FAA AD 2013-2006 electrical power control units EE bay moisture ingress required operators to inspect and modify moisture protection in the forward EE bay. And more recently, we've referred to other ADs from the FAA and service bulletins from Boeing. The design included drip shields under lavatories and galleys to divert any leaks away from the avionic racks.
So, what ADs and NPRMS have been issued by the FAA? What service or requirement bulletins has Boeing issued?
Well, we're showing you a screenshot with all of the ADs. The NPRM is a notice of rulemaking, and the SBs, the service bulletins. So there are 3 FAA ADs and 1 NPRM going back to the 12th of August 2016, and a total of 6 Boeing SBs and RBs going also back to August 2016. And the most recent and important one, AD 2025-09-12, which we've mentioned in previous episodes, was issued on the 14th of May 2025. Its effective date is the 18th of June, so 12 days after the accident. And the notice of a proposed rulemaking was published on the 16th of June, just 4 days after the accident.
So, what happens if the water leaks through the cabin floor?
Well, you need to understand the electrical power distribution system. There are 2 distinct power distribution methods. The primary method for high amperage loads, greater than 10 amps, and that's directly from the bus power panels in the EE bays. And then there's the remote and low amperage loads under 10 amps, and there are 17 remote power distribution units, RPDUs, throughout the aircraft. A limited number of high voltage 235 volt AC loads are energized from the aft EE bay. The majority of loads are 115 volt AC and 28 volt DC, and they're energized by the forward EE bay and these 17 RPDUs. The forward and aft E-bays contain the main and APU battery, the main battery in the forward and the APU battery in the aft EE bay. And they contain power conversion devices which change power from one voltage or current type to another, and the system controllers, so they direct the power to the buses and the systems. And the 17 RPDUs control around 900 28 volt DC and 115 AC loads. So a lot of systems on the Boeing 787.
So where are the 17 RPDUs located, Richard?
So we're showing a screenshot of the locations. The RPDUs are marked in yellow. 6 of them in the forward EE bay, together with the main battery. And there are 2 RPDUs in the aft EE bay, together with the APU battery. And then there are 9 RPDUs located under the cabin floor and throughout the aircraft. And 2 of these RPDUs are located by door 3, left and right. And in total, 11 RPDUs are located below either the forward or the mid toilets.
Wow. So what systems are affected by water ingress to one or more RPDUs or one or more EE bays?
Okay, so the division is the forward EE bay 115 volts affects 25 systems. That's cabin lighting, cabin systems like the IFE, galley power, GPS, the weather radar, transponder, TCAS, window heat, the high frequency radio, and SATCOM. The forward EE bay 28 volt affects about 200 systems, including the Common Core System, the CCS, audio, VHF, autopilot, autothrottle, engine igniters, the DC fuel pump, the flight deck instruments and displays, the bus power control units, brake power, and flight controls, both primary and secondary, and normal and backup. And then we move to the aft EE bay that has a large motor controller affecting 12 systems. That's the hydraulic pumps, the cabin air compressors, the ram fans, the engine and APU start, the center tank fuel pumps, and the nitrogen generation system, which is used for venting the fuel system. And the aft EE bay 235 AC affects around 40 systems, wing ice protection, the ECS recirculation fans, the main tank fuel pumps, cargo heaters, spoilers, stabilizer, alternate flaps, equipment cooling, galley refrigeration, and the aft galley complex.
Wow. What could cause a dual engine shutdown?
Well, there are 4 possibilities, and I'm listing them in priority order. So the most likely is the main tank fuel pump failure. The second possibility is the center tank fuel pump failure. A third is the nitrogen generation system failure. And fourthly, and least likely, a CCS failure, so the Common Core System failure. Now, both engines normally feed from the wing main tanks via the AC boost pumps. a common mode loss of the 235 volt AC to those pumps, and that's located in the aft EE bay, can collapse manifold pressure at the takeoff thrusts. So when you're taking off at tow guard, takeoff go around thrust, you're pushing the engines to their maximum. And the high pressure pumps can cavitate. They have a suction, but the low net positive suction head, called the MPSH, that margin can worsen when the outside temperature is, as it was, 37 degrees centigrade. And both engines can roll back and flame out within seconds. The 787's more electric architecture supplies these high power loads with 235 volt AC, and there is a common bus and connector contactors set, and if they were to trip even briefly, then a source transfer transient at rotation can drop all wing pumps together.
So what happens if the high pressure fuel pumps cavitate?
The engine-mounted high-pressure fuel pumps would be starved of boost pressure. Vapor forms at their inlets, and they could fail to deliver fuel steadily, leading to a dual flameout. Cavitation happens when the pump inlet pressure is too low for the temperature and environmental conditions. If you did any physics in school, you will remember Charles' law and Boyle's law and the thermodynamics, and that is exactly as what governing what's happening with the fuel pumps. The fuel effectively boils or flashes, and it vaporizes, and these vapor bubbles form inside the pump because of this net positive suction head being insufficient. And as those vapor bubbles collapse inside the pump, they cause a loss of the continuous liquid flow. The pump can't supply a steady fuel. They, over a long time, can cause erosion and damage of the pump surfaces from the bubble implosion. And they can also cause pressure and flow oscillations. So the combustion of the engines is unstable, and you get flame out of the engine.
So, Richard, now what is your conclusion?
Well, we know for a fact that the temperature on that day was 37 degrees centigrade. And if water ingress into the aft EE bay induced a common mode 235 volt AC interruption to both main wing boost pumps, the feed manifold pressure can collapse at takeoff thrust, and the engine high pressure pump cavitates, and both engines can roll back and flame out within seconds. And the FAA has repeatedly addressed undetected water leaks and protection of the aft EE bay areas. And Boeing service bulletin work packages specifically target waste couplings and water ingress into the aft EE bay. The 787's more electric architecture distributes this 230, 235 volt AC to large loads, but there is a single upstream disturbance possibility which can de-energize multiple pump circuits if it hits a shared node. And both wing boost pumps going offline will lead to the feed manifold pressure collapsing at tow guard demand. So the high pressure pumps cavitate, low input inlet pressure and hot fuel at the temperatures we've talked about, and the MPSH margin And what happens? Fuel flow drops, the EGT N2 decays, and dual flameout or rollback is the consequence. If there is evidence of a 235-volt AC remaining healthy and both wing pumps being fully powered, then it still could be that the center tank pumps failed and the nitrogen generation system failed. And that should be considered as an alternative issue to get to the bottom of what happened when water ingress occurred in the aft EE bay.
So has this ever happened on a 787-8?
Well, one of our sources told us that the VTAMB aircraft, the crash aircraft, had a RPDU failure due to another reason, not due to water ingress, in the forward E bay a week before the accident. Another source has told us he had to twice replace RPDUs due to urine contamination, and that was from the right mid toilet. He said he could smell the urine on the equipment racks. And yet another source told us that after several galley spillage incidents, India decided to carpet the entire galley area with rubber matting in order to prevent galley spills and contain any overflow into the cabin floor and the equipment below.
So the question then is, does Air India take aircraft maintenance as seriously as they should?
Well, we certainly would like to know whether Air India complied with AD 2025-09-12, issued on the 14th of May 2025, which is mandatory, by the way. The preliminary report states all applicable airworthiness directives and alert service bulletins were complied with on the aircraft as well as on the engines. If this is the case, you then have to ask, why did the DGCA order an inspection of all Air India Boeing 787 fleet after the crash on the 12th of June 2025? If all airworthiness directives and service bulletins were complied with, what did they then expect to find? The most damning statement in the preliminary report, as far as I'm concerned, is as per the information from Air India, the suggested inspections were not carried out as the SAIB was advisory and not mandatory. Now, that's referring to another advisory bulletin. So we're clearly told Air India does not follow advisory bulletins. So where's the evidence they complied with the mandatory bulletin? That's not mentioned. And several sources tell us that Air India has experienced several problems with water ingress into the EE bays. So I think we need to have the maintenance logs, and they need to be very clear what was done and what was not done by Air India.
It's actually extraordinary, Richard, that an airline would not follow an advisory from Boeing or Airbus. It just beggars belief that
It does.
I mean, you couldn't imagine an airline like British Airways, Lufthansa, or Qantas saying, "Oh, we're not going to bother to do that." They would have it done in a flash.
Of course, they track all of these bulletins in detail, and they produce the maintenance logs on demand. And I'm amazed at the statement in the preliminary report that actually admits, well, we don't bother with anything if it's not mandatory.
So, Richard, the AAIB of India was pointing the finger at a deliberate act by the captain in that preliminary report, weren't they?
Yeah. And what they omit to tell you, however, is that when the rat deploys, only the captain's flight instruments and displays are powered and not the first officer's. So the first officer was the pilot flying, and the captain was the pilot monitoring. But when the emergency took place and the rat deployed, then because the captain's flight instruments and display are the only ones that are powered, there is quite clearly a missing piece in the cockpit voice where the captain says "my aircraft" and takes over the control. He has to because he's the only one with the flight instruments and displays being powered. So the rat deployment automatically signals the captain to take control of the aircraft. And in my view, the captain was then trying to save the aircraft and relight the engines. And we know the relights of both engines was ultimately successful. Unfortunately, it was too late to save the aircraft. And in my view, the preliminary report is a thinly veiled attempt to cover up the Air India maintenance failures and pin the blame on the captain.
Yes, that would be a conclusion that I think many, many people would come to. The more we dig into this and the more sources come to us with information, the more the case builds for that scenario. Well, Richard, thank you very much indeed for that amazing analysis. That was really extraordinary, very, very interesting. And as we had alluded to yesterday, viewers, this is a new development. We've had some information which has come to us, which is contained in the last section of this report. And tomorrow we're taking the day off and we'll be back with you on Tuesday. Thank you for subscribing to us. If you are not subscribing, please do. Thank you for those wonderful comments, fantastic questions, and overall, thank you for your support. Richard, once again, thank you for all your work on this episode.
You're
today.
very welcome.
And viewers, we look forward to your company on Tuesday. Thank you very much.